Hey mamas, and welcome to the Entering Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Marie Bilger, a wife, mom of two, VBAC mama, and doula. Join us every episode to learn from professionals, special guests, and moms just like you, ensuring that you know what you need to know and discover things that you didn't know before. I believe in you. Let's doula this, and let's navigate the transition of entering motherhood together. Hello and welcome to another episode of Entering Motherhood. In this episode, I speak with Christine Eck, who is a postpartum doula and Ayurvedic medicine expert. Christine shares how her own difficult postpartum experience after her first child really inspired her to study traditional healing practices and utilize that moving forward. She discusses the cultural loss of postpartum wisdom, the misconceptions that postpartum has, and she also goes into the importance of warmth, rest, and nourishment during this recovery period. Christine offers practical advice, including preparing nourishing foods, building a support network, and embracing breathwork. She encourages mothers to treat the postpartum period as a sacred, intentional time for healing and self-care. She is just such a great resource for discovering what's possible, healing in the postpartum period. And so with that, let's hear from Christine and get this episode started. Hello and welcome to Entering Motherhood. I'm super excited to have you here today and get this episode started. But before we really get going into conversation, I'd love for you to introduce yourself for the listeners and tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you, Sarah. My name is Christine Eck, and I'm a mama to four. I have four boys, and I'm a little bit farther out. My littlest is 8 now. But I really began on this journey of exploring postpartum care and how to really experience true healing and rejuvenation after having my babies through, honestly, the absence of that with my first child, and realizing that there was so much more to that period of time than I had anticipated, and really recognizing that there wasn't a lot of information out there that was supporting me to understand just how critical those weeks and months and years even were going to be. And so really recognizing the lack of information and access and understanding of what was needed prompted me to really go further into that field. I became a postpartum doula. Through going to school for Ayurvedic medicine, realized that there's an incredible wealth of wisdom for healing after birth. And that really changed my life with the births of my second, third, and fourth little ones. I was able to have a very different experience. And so now we train doulas, we train care providers to really understand the nuances and the importance of those weeks after birth in order to create better access, better support, better awareness for families out there. So there's more just a general paradigm shift into, yes, the postpartum window is really important, and everyone experiences the postpartum window. It does not indicate an imbalance or depression. This is a important piece of time that we have an opportunity to really make better.
Yeah, I love how you mentioned like the wisdom that's there and really like this lost kind of information that for whatever reason we don't have very prevalent in our culture right now. And I think it's important that that is coming back and that we're bringing it back, but it is very, disconnected and not common knowledge to women who are birthing and having this postpartum period. And like you said too, it is everybody goes through postpartum. I think a lot of people misunderstand it and mishear it as, oh, like I didn't have postpartum, meaning like postpartum depression, anxiety, things like that. And the word postpartum itself is very misunderstood sometimes just because of that lack of knowledge. So I guess like one, like why do you think there is that either misinformation or not common knowledge among the general culture, and what can we be doing to really kind of highlight that and emulate that more?
Yeah, I appreciate that question, Sarah. And it's, you know, a bit complicated and I think nuanced in terms of how this absence, how this separation from this sort of older traditional cultural wisdom that can be found across the world, whatever background or ancestry we come from, if we go back far enough, we're going to see really solid ways in which people were fed and cared for and given healing support after birth. And so, I think with the advancement of modern medicine, the way that that system is set up, I think with the more distance that is spread between individuals and families with their mothers, their aunties, their grandmothers, with the sort of, I was talking about this the other day and reflecting on my mother's generation and that real pushback against sort of gender roles, which were holding them back in certain ways. And so I think a combination of a lot of those things has created this expectation that healing after birth, shouldn't really be an issue and I can do it myself, or, the systems and the structures are just not there, as well as these traditions that have been passed down from grandmother to mother to daughter, those kinds of things. So I think there's a lot going on there. However, when we, look through this Ayurvedic lens, which is finding balance in all things and understanding that it isn't all to one way and it isn't all to the other. And so, yes, there's a lot of important things that have come about in modern care that we can value. And there's also a tremendous amount that can happen in our own homes with our own understanding of our own bodies and our own wisdom that's drawn from something much older, that's drawn from something that we can find in the earth, we can find with plants, we can find with the right foods for us, we can find with simply having that home care. This is the foundation of all of it. And this is what's really missing from the general understanding. And yes, there's a whole lot of conversation that can be had about what can our systems and our structures do to support families a little better. However, there's such empowerment that can come from the autonomy of, yes, I know my body and I know my baby better than anybody else. And these are the foods that I can begin to start, bringing in to support my milk supply. And these are the qualities that I can think about that are going to help me feel more rested and help me feel more regulated in my nervous system. And these are the key pieces of support that I know are going to be really helpful for me. And it's this type of understanding that was central to everything in the Ayurvedic lens of health and healing, which really is universal. It's not meant to be for one culture or background. This is universal understanding of health. And I love seeing how we can apply these universal qualities of what is healing in the postpartum
Mm.
window to so many different people's unique backgrounds and preferences and families and food style. Like there's so much that can be individualized for each person that also still addresses this sort of universal considerations that we have after birth.
Yeah, and I think, there's kind of that misinterpretation too of intuition and knowing yourself and being able to like do those kinds of things for yourself versus like independence and needing to do it by yourself. So it's where we can, draw inward and have that intuition. It doesn't necessarily mean we have to be independent in that and do it ourselves. And so like I think, yeah, there's been like improvements on women empowerment and doing things ourselves and leaning into that intuition and things like that. But then it's also been, yeah, like a pushback of I don't need anybody, I can do it myself. But in this period,
there are things that you can be intuitive with, but also understand that it's helpful to have other people there nourishing you and nurturing you and providing for you. So it's this weird kind of, okay, I want to be independent, but I need to lean into my intuition and how can I have somebody there for me? So I guess can you kind of like walk through like we're talking about a lot of these different things and caring at home and whatnot, but can you kind of give a little bit of a glimpse of what that actually looks like for somebody who is completely new to this sense of care and just like these practices? Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I actually feel called in this moment to kind of just use my own, just give a glimpse into my own personal experience as a way
Yeah.
to share about what that can look like. So I remember studying with my teacher, Yesha Oakes, as I was in my third trimester of my second pregnancy. And so this was going to be the first time that I was really starting to integrate some of this understanding into my own care. And at the time, this was in 2010, there wasn't a lot of people out there doing this type of postpartum care. Postpartum care generally looked like, somebody coming and, you know, watching your baby while they slept and like doing some laundry but it was pretty hands off for the moms. And this was different. This was care that I was learning was really centered on my own rejuvenation so that I could best nourish my baby and be the best mom and strongest mom and most present mom and rested mom that I could be. That was the intention. So I needed to really piece together things. Now I urge your listeners to know that there are incredible helpers and care providers out there. And this isn't a time where we want to go it alone. We want to gather our trusted sisters and aunties and our mothers. We want them around. We want people to be helping. So this is a time to say yes to that. So I did that. I asked for a lot more support from my friends, from my sister, from my mom and my mother-in-law. I had a clearer idea of what types of foods were going to help me to have easier elimination and digestion. Because I remembered the first time that it was really difficult to start to go to the bathroom again and start to feel like I had an appetite. So I knew that I needed to be focusing on warm foods, soupier foods, foods that had some good fats in them to help support my nervous system. So I had sort of a little collection of like pretty easy postpartum friendly recipes that I liked. And I had them all printed out in the kitchen and made sure I had ingredients for those
Mm.
types of things on hand. I had a couple of different herbal recipes that like a tea and also some chewing herbs that I knew so I had them lined up on the counter. I taught my husband how to make them. I let my mother-in-law know like this is how I want to take these every day. And so I had support. They were able to come in and help me with this. I had a hot water thermos that I made sure somebody had always filled it with hot water or warm water. So I was drinking that because I was learning that warm things, warm liquids, warm everything was better for me than cold things or like icy things or crunchy raw things. Those were not going to be helpful. I really prioritized, I made this little basket for next to my bed. So I was really promoting like staying in my room for as much of the time in that first week and two particularly. And then beyond that, it was like my goal to stay in the room all morning and then maybe kind of venture downstairs in the afternoon. But in that basket, I would have everything that I might need. So I didn't have to like always be getting up for things. So it was little stuff for the baby. It was some snacks. It was a flower essence. I think I had some rescue remedy in there. I had a nipple balm. I had anything that I thought that I might need. I made sure it was close on hand. This probably was the most impactful. And I have to say, Sarah, I literally just taught this to a new mom yesterday. During my pregnancy, I started doing this breath practice whenever I would lay down to rest. and it's just alternate nostril breathing, nadi shodhana. That's just simple balancing breath. And I just continued to repeat that while I was resting, while I was doing anything. And then in postpartum, that breath practice had become my friend. It had become my like trusted routine. And that practice in itself, like immediately starts to shift your nervous system space of balance. So I had that breathing practice with me. I think the ultimate is just the perception that this is a sacred time. This is not a time for me to be rushing back to things that I can do a few weeks from now. This is a time where people are aware around me in my close circle that I am prioritizing coming back into health in a very intentional way. This is a time that I can't digest the same foods that I normally would. So I need to make some considerations for ensuring that I can actually assimilate the foods that I'm bringing in. And just understanding that it is a sacred, unique window of time. And in Ayurveda, we look at this as Sakaya Kalpa, which is a unique time in which whatever we do that is considered healing, the body will integrate that on an elevated level. So it's different than any other time. And on the flip side, if we're not paying attention to what our body really needs during that unique sacred time, we're going to feel it heavier. We're going to feel it even more difficultly than we might at any other time. We're not as resilient at that time, and that's to be expected. But just the shift in perspective for me was the most impactful. It's easy to start to just postpartum foods are simple. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. The other thing I'll just add, Sarah, is that oil massage, like putting oil on your skin, literally nourishes you from the outside in. It is an incredible practice that I couldn't find anyone to come over and do it for me or go see somebody. I think I had like one or two practitioner given abhyangas during that time. But I had the oil at home and I would put it on my body like I would put on lotion, before or after bathing. But it was so impactful for supporting just a general return to myself.
Yeah, I think in our culture, we have very few opportunities to slow down and really be with ourselves and give ourselves care. It's a beautiful and wonderful opportunity to do that, and most of the time it is allowed. Like, you do have that time, whether you're working and you get some sort of maternity leave, or you give yourself that break, like in general. So to utilize it and in the most sacred way, and give ourselves that opportunity to feel that care and to take advantage of it, I think is great opportunity because, yes, like, you're healing and you're going through all this stuff, but you are, like you said, like, just in a more natural state of this stuff. Like, you're more open to feel and to have that really be something that you can tap into more and care for. So, like, yes, like, our baby is also in a very little state of needing to be nurtured and cared for and tended to, but so are we. And so to give ourselves that opportunity in that moment, I think is really great. So how can we sort of go about looking for some of these practices, or like you said, like even yourself, like just making recipes and giving it to people that were coming into your home, or using the lotion on yourselves? Like, what other ways can we be outsourcing these kinds of practices, being able to give ourselves that time and that nourishment?
Yeah, there are a lot of ways that we can go about doing that. I would first of all recommend doing some exploration and reading. I find pregnant people are often really excited about reading things and studying and preparing and planning, and this is all incredibly important. The planning piece for postpartum is what is going to create that foundation for you. So explore things like postpartum cookbooks and go visit Sacred Window Studies, our Instagram, our website. We have so many resources. Read books like The First 40 Days or The Fourth Trimester, things like that. Start to really explore what's possible. And then look and see what helpers are in your area. So find out if there are postpartum doulas, particularly Ayurvedic trained postpartum doulas who really understand the digestion, the importance of digestion and lactation, and how we can care for you in a way that's going to give you optimal experiences for all of that. And Ayurveda, the gut is the source of all health or all disease. And so we take care of our gut first. And in really understanding that, you mentioned, the baby, of course, is in this tender space. But when we really look at it, the needs of babies and the needs of new parents are very similar. We're looking at how's their tummy doing? How are they warm enough? Are they sleeping? How is their cord, like their cord care and our bottom care or our incision care? We're really looking at things in the same lens for both birth parent and baby. And this to me is so beautiful. So when we can approach it with really creating a plan where we know this is how I'm going to be nourished. These are people who are going to help us with being nourished. These are people who are going to help ensure that I can get rest. If you have older children, how can we support them so that you have the space to sleep or rest? And also a conversation that I had recently too is, it's hard to sleep when our babies sleep sometimes, but we can prioritize it as rest versus I have to be sleeping. And
Mm.
that can be helpful. Also, that breath practice I mentioned earlier is incredible for receiving the benefits of sleep when we can't actually sleep. Things like yoga nidra are really great practices for sort of coming into that meditative state, restful state in the body. But ultimately, it's like think about what creates a feeling of being cared for you.
Mm.
And your answer to that might be different for me. But I would really want everyone to explore what is it that makes me feel safe? What is it that makes me feel like I can rest, like I'm relaxed enough that I can rest? Where are the places that I can start to feel stress more? What are the things that I feel uncomfortable asking for? And
Mm.
maybe look at that ahead of time. Maybe asking yourself, what are the roadblocks that could come up that would keep me from getting the nourishment and the rest and the love and care that I need? So when we look at those things ahead of time, we have the opportunity to kind of avoid them before they come up and set up structures and plans that really hold us. You can think of it like you're weaving a safety net for yourself. You're weaving a support network to help hold you in that time. And when we experience care like that, we are never the same. We are forever grateful. We are more empowered. We are carrying that resiliency into the future. We are also certain to be passing along that care to our friends, to our children when we become grandparents. It
Mm.
really starts to shift a generational paradigm as well, which I find to be incredibly beautiful.
Yeah, so you have 4 boys. You started doing this working and researching and learning about it after your first. How were your other postpartum periods comparable? And how do you feel your parents and grandparents viewed that?
Mm, to be honest, I think it got easier every single time. Part of that is I learned more every single time, but there was a piece that felt uncomfortable asking of things to my mother-in-law and to my mom that they were unfamiliar with. Like I wanted to do it this way, which was not how they did it. But I have to tell you that they were so gracious about it. perhaps there were things that they thought that I, didn't, that I don't know about. But ultimately, they showed up for me. They did what
Mm.
they could. They did what I needed them to do. And after that first postpartum window, I was able to hire some people who could support me in ways that wasn't necessarily available to me in 2010. But as the years have gone on, there's more and more people out there who are doing this beautiful work. You are always worth asking for care and asking for help. You deserve love, you deserve care, and you can ask for it. Even when it feels uncomfortable, it's important to do scary things sometimes. I think it's important to step out of that comfort zone because great reward, great benefit can come when we're unafraid to step out and say, no, I deserve this. I'm going to ask for this.
Yeah, I think that's important to remember. And sometimes maybe you're listening to this and you're saying, oh, like I don't have anybody in my life that would do this, or I am open to, these types of practices and I do want to be cared for that way, but who's going to do that? Or I can't afford the help, things like that. I think when you open up and you ask people around you if they're willing to help, even if it's maybe not necessarily the exact way you're looking for or what you imagined, I think, people are open to trying and helping. And especially in this time period, people want to help. So I think it's a matter of like maybe you don't think that the help is around you, but when you open up and you ask for it, you'd be surprised. And even in pregnancy, like saying, hey, like, I think this is going to be something that I struggle with, or hey, like, I don't know how I'm going to have this done. Just bringing up those conversations and then hearing somebody like an aunt or a cousin or, your mom or a grandma, like whatever it is, even if it's your partner saying like, "Oh yeah, like I want to do that for you," or "I want to support you during this time." I think you'll be surprised at how much help is actually readily available to you.
100%. Absolutely. And I urge all of us to sort of release the expectation of like it has to be just this way because that doesn't really flow when we're parents. We've got to like really expand and start to be a little flexible and give ourselves grace and give all of the things grace for some surprises and some unexpected things. But ultimately, care and love can come in many forms. And when there's something that we need, we can ask for help. We can always ask for help.
Awesome. Well, obviously, this work is deep. There's so much to it. There's just, like you have obviously been learning for years all about it. And I'm sure you're still learning more and more every day. But what can you kind of say to somebody who is looking for this kind of care or is currently pregnant, newly postpartum, that you would really want them to walk away with or know or take with them to start getting familiar with this or learning about it? And having something tangible to really bring into their postpartum period.
Yeah. To distill it into some very simple suggestions, I would remind people to think of warmth,
Mhm.
think of slowness, think of juiciness, like good, you know, slippery oils, like, warm, like we want to just juice you back up in the postpartum window. Know that there is a tremendous amount of wisdom that has been carried on through generations that is there for you if you want to bring that back into your own personal experience. And your path, your journey is yours, and it can look exactly like it needs to look for you. We oftentimes are gravitated towards trying to mimic something else, but your story is yours. Embrace your uniqueness, your individuality, your own sense of balance and empowerment, and know that there are incredible care providers out there. We have, a directory on our website, but there's lots of folks. There's incredible help and support and a lot of enthusiasm around ensuring that postpartum people feel strong, feel integrated, feel empowered by their own experiences. And your postpartum window deserves to be every bit as beautiful as you want your birth to be. And so it's a whole cycle. So we're really honoring every part of that.
Amazing. So, how can we get in contact with you? How can we find this directory? How can we, learn more information?
Yeah, so on all the social spaces, you can look at Sacred Window Studies, sacredwindowstudies.com. Again, my name is Christine, and I love to connect with folks. I love to connect with people who are called to this field. So we're very approachable. It's a beautiful community of hundreds of conscious postpartum care providers around the world. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think, it's really powerful work. It's super important. And I think more people need to, learn about it, be exposed to it, understand it. And even if it's just a little like blip of it, incorporate it into your postpartum period. I think it's going to make so much of a difference.
I could not agree more. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, mamas, so much for listening. Remember, you are a rock star. I believe in you. Let's doula this. Let's crank it up a notch and let's kick it into high gear together. Hit that subscribe button, share this episode with a friend, message me, email me, call me, beat me. You know how to reach me. We're doing this, mamas. I am so excited to catch you here next week. This is your one-stop go-to place for helping you find the resources you need to make the best choices for you and your family during pregnancy, birth, and most importantly, postpartum. See you later, mamas.